Hey guys, welcome to the master class. This is Dynamic Sketching, lesson 2. First week, we covered some of the very basic stuff, just line work, the arc. Excuse my voice, for a while it's just been scratchy and coffee, but bear with it. But like I was saying, the first week, we were just covering line, arc, waves, ellipses, very basic stuff. So if you guys have a hard time with that, keep pushing along, stick with it. Continue as long as you can. It's going to take a while. Even just taking this class once is definitely not going to be enough. Take the lessons that I'm giving you guys and continue even after this class is done. You have to keep going with it. For today, I want to show you guys more things with shapes. So going back to the initial 5 forms, the circle, the cube, cylinder, cone, and pyramid. I'm sorry. You're going to see me add some color to my sketches on the chalkboard, but don't pay any attention to that. It's just for flavor. Again, the 5 shapes, principal shapes. And today we're going to be covering organic forms. The organic forms are going to apply to things like character design, creatures, plants, animals, anything that regards to organic stuff. Before we get into any of that kind of advanced stuff, you need to just be able to contort, push, mold those shapes to your favor so that you can use them to your advantage. And this shape will be the one we're going to go with. And much like the ellipse and the circles we were doing, we're going to take that similar shape. I'm going to show you some examples. Ideally, this is an exercise that I'll probably give you online as well, but do some for yourself. This is a very basic organic shape. I've taken the ellipse, and I've basically just kind of pulled it and pushed it down. And we're just going to create random organic shapes. Create your own, a series. I want you guys to fill up a page of just organic shapes. Now you're going to find with any of these kind of organic shapes, there's a center line to them. The center line is going to be very important for you guys when you start sketching on site or whatever kind of shape you're creating. There's always going to be this center line, and that's going to help you with your perspective. But for now, just create some of these organic shapes. And when you're creating these, you're going to notice that they're just flat, two-dimensional images. There are several topics we're going to cover today. One is the organic shapes. Second is going to be the contours. The contours, and we're going to do them for geometric forms as well, so it applies to round, soft shapes and hard surface shapes. Organic stuff. Looking at them on the board right now, they're just flat, two-dimensional images. You can't tell what forms are turning where. You really can't tell much from just looking at it from now. So let's take another color here, and I'm going to start to add some contours. So let's label this right here. shapes. Now let's do some contours. The contours are there to give you form, to show you how these shapes are turning, and it's almost like a 3D program where it gives you the wireframe. This is what I don't want to see with contours. Let's take that same shape. People tend to overdo contouring. The way I've spaced them out here, I've doubled up some of my lines. Do not evenly space out those contour lines. I want you guys to break up that form instead of having an even contour line. For one, breaking it up gives it a little bit more dynamic feel to it. This tends to flatten the drawing too. So break up your spacing, double up some of your lines, and be more spontaneous with it. Don't be so checkered, because when you come back and start to contour again this way, it's just checkering. You just want to describe the form enough for you, information-wise, so you know how much they're turning. And of course, when we get further into the lesson, where to apply texture, shadow, form shadow, cast shadows, all that kind of stuff. Let's fill in some of these other shapes. Last one. So again, now we can see how these forms are turning. It gives a much more three-dimensional feel, and you can get a better sense of the perspective as well. So again, no checkering. Break up your lines. Make it more spontaneous. We're not going to use any other materials right now, just your pen. Don't include any of the value with the markers or the white gel pen. Leave all that stuff out for now, and stick to your pen and the foundation of it. As we continue along, I'm going to show you how to apply some of your contours with your geometric forms, which we'll tackle later on, but really just be able to handle organic forms. Make your shapes really random. I mean, just push your shapes. This is a very basic form I just want you guys to start with, but go all out, go crazy. You know, make these shapes really, really unique. It's almost like problem solving, like a Rubik's Cube. Give yourself a shape that is so obscure, you can't tell what's going on just by the shape alone. Problem solve it. Find out how to make this shape work for you. Give it some dimension. but it's got to challenge you. And it will seem a little mundane at first, but the more you do these, you'll find that you'll have an easier time breaking up some of these organic forms you might see in person, on site, live. This shape is all organic shapes. Let's move on. Part 2. I'm going to erase some of this stuff here. I'll leave this stuff up. We're going to start this kind of like what we did week 1. I'm going to draw a vertical line down. Horizontal lines out. We've tackled organic shapes. Now, how do we apply texture? And I kind of want to split this up where we're going to do organic stuff first, get into texture, learn how to apply that, then get into the geometric forms, and also learn how to apply texture to those as well. And I want to split it this way because I want to show you guys that organic shapes on this side are going to be the stuff that you do for your plants, character designs, creature designs, and the textures are, I'm going to show you how to apply them to that. And also to show you the difference that when we're doing this organic stuff and then we get into the geometric stuff, there is no difference. A lot of people tend to think that if you draw a particular thing, if you're a particular designer like a character designer, a creature designer, you could only draw those things. You know, I'll meet people and say, I'm a character designer because that's all I can draw. I don't do vehicles or environments because I just can't draw them. No. If as a designer, conceptual designer, if you can draw, you shouldn't just be able to draw one thing. Especially with this method, there's nothing you shouldn't be able to draw because everything is built up with these shapes. So I'm going to split up that way. First half organics, second half geometric. When we split those up and you guys do both sides, you'll start to see the similarities in that they are both the same and similar. Texture. New sheet of paper. Let's get some brackets up in here as well. The one thing I kind of wanted to show you guys, especially with this drawing technique, you got to be careful with the amount of detail you put in. Texture. And this texture could be anything. It could be the stuff that you see all around you, a wood texture, grain, fish scales, or whatever. Or it could be random stuff that you make up. The idea about this is gradation. When we apply this to these shapes, you're going to have a focal point, an area of interest. Let's say you have a random geometric or organic form here, and you start to apply these textures. You don't want to apply the texture everywhere. One, it'll flatten the drawing, it'll overcomplicate it, people don't know where to look. You got to lead the eye. So gradation, start dark, going light. Dark to light. And it's the idea of opposites. Dark to light, complicated to organized. Let's do a couple here. And this could be just a random texture. And this could apply to a lot of different places. For me, this might apply to a tree or some kind of environmental piece that you're trying to design. Maybe even like I said, the fish. But the idea is that I'm going dark, heavy, to light. Gradation. Let's do another one. It may seem random at first, but the idea of opposites, going from chaotic to something more organized. Scale is also an issue. So going small, large. Change it up. And do this while I'm talking as well. So have some simple brackets for yourself and try some of these. And this is going to be part of your homework. So I would definitely like to see what you guys come up with. And play with them. Be really, really creative in this outlet. You can also do cross-hatching, line work. Keep going. Again, do not be afraid to go dark. And I'm talking black almost with your pen. Dark to light, gradation. When we start to apply these over here, you're going to find that you're going to want to mess up, of course, like I have said. Applying your textures, if you over texturize, you'll know when you've messed up because it's just going to look like a mess. I'll give you an example. And this is just a rant. You know what? Actually, I'll give you an image. Here's just a simple fish I just drew. The shape I started out with in organic form. Texture. Let's take this one right here. Pick a focal point, an area of interest. You don't want to texture everything all the way up to the fish. You want to let things fade off into the background. You may think, oh, it looks unfinished. No, it's about leading the eye, finding a focal point, defining an area. people are going to ask, what about speed? How do I speed up? That's actually one of the first things students will ask me. Don't worry about it yet. Speed naturally comes with mileage. If you try to rush it, you're going to find that you're going to stumble and trip over yourself. It's best that you understand the process first before you try to concern yourself with speed, because speed is a natural thing that just comes with this. So again, an area of interest. Everything else fades back. That's the way I want texture to be used, or any kind of detail work as we go along in the class. But this is your first step. Just applying texture to a simple bracket, learning how to gradate, going from dark to light. Practice using your organic forms. Create as many as you can, do 2, 3, 4 pages of them, and fill it up. Have some that are just contours so you understand how those shapes are moving and turning. Then apply your textures. Be careful making your texture brackets too large. If this whole bracket was my texture line, filling up that much space with detail is just going to take too much time. It's just time consuming. So make them small. I'd say about ½ an inch thick and about maybe half the page. From there, practice this as much as you can. We're going to go back to the organic forms real quick because I want to show you guys another trick. I'm going to erase some of these organic forms here. This next part is about dissection. And this definitely applies more towards the organic side of it. And we're going to take a general organic shape. Let's make this into a pumpkin. So a pumpkin. But you saw how I created it. It was this basic organic shape, contoured it out. Pumpkin. But let's take the shape, take it a step further. Draw it one more time. We're going to cut it in half. Take a piece of it here. And the idea of dissection is a better understanding of your forms. You've dissected, or not dissected, but contoured them out so you know how they turn. But now let's give them a real three-dimensional feel to it by cutting these pieces away. If you know how to cut pieces and sections out of an organic form, then you'll know really how these forms are turning. And inside of it, and this is where also we can apply texture, interior dissection. So this is like a piece that I took out here. That would go in there. Take your dissected parts and you add your texture to them. If it's a particular object you don't know what the interior looks like, it doesn't matter. You just fill it in. Excuse me, just hungry. In this, we can use random organic shapes. We could take actual objects, pumpkin, we can do an insect, cut away, do a dissection, show how the internal parts work out. And this will help as a designer, especially when you're doing creatures or something like that. If you're designing an insectoid creature or some kind of fish, do a sectional view of it so you see how the internal organs work out. And when you're doing creature designs, you want to take it as far as you can, showing how the skeletal structure works, muscle works, how it eats, how the internal organs work. And I take it that far. Designers may not need it as much information that you're giving them, but it's still good to think about all that sorts of stuff scientifically. So cutting pieces away, dissection, very, very important. For instance, let's use an ant. Using organic forms, I've constructed my initial lay-in. I've dissected my piece where it cuts in half. I'm just going to randomly draw in some organs or whatever ants are made up of. Doesn't matter. The idea is that you're thinking more than you really have to. But it does show that you're a thinker. All right, cool. So for today, covering organic shapes, the 5 forms, contour lines, texture, using texture, gradation, dark to light, focal points. For homework this week, create, I'd say, about four pages of organic shapes contoured out, 1 page of organic shapes contoured with texture applied, 1 last page, so 6 pages total, 1 last page of texture. Split your page down in half, create as many texture patterns as you can. Make some up, look at nature, research, look in books, whatever you can. Create your own texture. This reference of texture that you're going to create, you'll come back to and use later on. So it's very important you spend a bit more time in this area than anywhere else. Of course, if you guys have any questions at the time, ask me. Pretty straightforward. It's, of course, harder in application than it is just me telling you. But that's where, of course, practice and mileage will come in. So constantly practice. That's pretty much all I wanted to cover this week. I want to make sure you guys are clear that what I'm trying to cover is here and here are simple. They are very simple. Do not overcomplicate yourself. If you overthink it, you're just going to sit there and not start. And I know that blank page can be very intimidating, especially using a pen. If you guys are used to just using pencil, ballpoint, paint, or whatever, and you've never used a felt tip pen before, it can be very scary. And a lot of people and students tell me that. It's like, I've never used this, and it scares me because I don't know when to start, and I don't know when I started when to stop. If you feel like you don't know when to stop and you ask yourself that question, stop. Because then you take them too far. If you do want to take it as far as you can. It's better to go extreme than not go far enough. Because if you've gone far enough, then you'll know, okay, I can pull it back a little bit. It's worse when I have to tell you, push it harder, push it harder. Push yourself as hard as you can to the breaking point where it's almost a mess. You pull yourself back step by step. You know what you messed up on. If you do a particular drawing and you feel like you messed up on it, I detailed this too much. Stop, right underneath it, redraw the drawing. Do it again. Do not make the same mistake. You know what mistake you made on the first drawing. The second one, you should have learned, okay, I know what I did wrong here. I'm not going to do it here. Problem solving. This technique is definitely all about also picking up what you can, running with it. I can only show you so much. In the end, you guys have to be the one to understand what works for you and pushing it as hard as you can for yourself. This really is also a self-learning kind of class. So all these tools and techniques that I'm teaching you are very basic and foundational, but you can take these very, very far. And it is up to you to basically see how far you can take it. So run with it. All right? So thank you. I'll see you guys next week. Okay, you guys. Much like lesson 1, I kind of wanted to come back to the paper and show you what I'm really looking for in terms of your actual sketches. Now, obviously, this is all done by hand, so you're going to have to do a really good scan for you guys to show me exactly what you're going to do. They're not digital files, so I hope all of you guys have access to a scanner type device so that you can send me these images clear and crisp so I can see exactly what's happening. But on paper, I wanted to just go over a few things in terms of the organic shapes, the contouring, and the texturing as well. What I'm looking for the organic shapes, again, random shapes, as long as they're rounded, organic, no hard edges. And within them, I can find a center line. But again, they're just flat, 2D, almost cookie cutter shapes. But now I want to give them some dimension. Pen, vertical. I'm not changing the angles or anything like that. Steady lines. Being really, really focused and confident in the line, that I'm not sitting there trying to find these forms rushing them out. Line economy. Keep your drawings with as less lines as possible. So when I'm finding this drawing, I'm finding it with one line. Break up your contours. Do not evenly space them out. Double up some of your lines. Go back, reinforce some of your lines. That's pretty much what I'm looking for. Organic shapes, contours on top. For the texturing, same setup that we had with the ellipses, where we're creating brackets. Again, do not make them too thick. If this was almost an inch thick, you got to fill up all this space. It's going to be more time consuming. The smaller the space, the better. Again, gradation. Dark to light. And do not be afraid to go dark. This is a 0.3. Do not do this with a 0.1. You're going to sit there forever trying to get your darks. Going dark to light. Thick to thin. If you feel you haven't gone dark enough in the beginning, go back and fill it in. This is a basic crosshatch technique. If you want to, go with a thicker pen. Go with 5. Again, you're creating a catalog of textures, almost like swatches. You can even pattern some of this stuff out. Stripes, almost like zebra stripes. Here, I'm creating, and you can look at nature in general. But even within these patterns, I may be going dark in the beginning, but as I go out, fill it in less and less, pushing that gradation. So you get a sense of it progressing downward. What I wanted to see for homework this week was your organic forms. Again, 6 pages total. 4 pages of that would be great with the organic forms with the contours. The 5th page would be great if you use your organic forms and apply some of your textures on top. For instance, if I'm taking this shape here, applying this texture, I'm going to pick an area of focal point. Apply that texture on there, but I'm not going to evenly displace this texture. As I go out, I'll increase the size, lessen the detail. So again, the area of focus is where the dark is, high contrast. As I go out, it just fades back, vignetting. The last page will be your textures. A full page of it, cut it right in half. Have your brackets go halfway. Fill it in with as many textures as you can. variety, patterning, looking at nature, cross-hatching, making up your own. 6 pages total. If you guys can get me that, that'd be great. This will also be a great test to see how well you can handle the pen coming from last lesson. Going from here on out, it'll get a little bit more complicated. It's still all foundation stuff every week. So just keep up the exercises, push it hard, and maintain the homework. Do not lag behind. If you stop doing some of the homework and you try to keep up and you fall behind, it's going to be very, very hard and difficult for you guys to just constantly catch up. You want to just stay on it, be ahead of it as much as you can. Okay, you guys, good luck for this week.